And welcome back on Take Action News. This is Daniel Marins here on Saturday, February 9th. We're talking with Charlie Mitchell, our congressional reporter and the editor-in-chief of Take Action News. A grand bargain. That's a term that we often hear used in reference to a budget deal that will combine some combination of revenues and spending cuts. But could we also be looking at a grand bargain on energy that would combine increased production of fossil fuels with expanded funding for green energy? How about it, Charlie Mitchell? A grand bargain on energy?
Well, I have to remain skeptical about that. It's proven so difficult for the two parties to come together, but there were little signs of openings here. I'm going to be very interested to see what the president puts out there in the State of the Union in terms of climate change and energy policy. And we should watch closely to see how he frames that. But there were two interesting little things that happened over the past week with Republican leaders who work on energy issues, and they basically gave speeches in which, lo and behold, they acknowledged that climate change is a real issue, which is, it doesn't seem like such a huge lift, but within the congressional Republican ranks for a Republican leader to say, yes, there is climate change going on, that's somewhat striking. There's Senator Lisa Murkowski is the top Republican on the Senate Energy Committee. She's from Alaska, and she's basically crafted an energy blueprint in which she talks about funding green energy and renewable energy and all of that, and the way to do it, according to her, is to ramp up production of domestic oil and gas. It's a little bit counterintuitive. The more oil that we burn, the more greenhouse gases are going into the atmosphere. Natural gas is somewhat better, but it's still a fossil fuel. So at any rate, on her side, it's let's produce more and let's use more, but that will give the federal government more royalties, and she says we should put those royalties into advanced clean energy technologies. So this is the maybe the makings of a compromise and an ultimate compromise. I think that the offer could be attractive to Democrats because President Obama and congressional Democrats are still very worried about jobs, and natural gas production does create jobs. And
that's such a good point, Charlie. I'm glad you sort of made that point, because actually I got a chance to look at Jeffrey Immelt, the chairman and CEO of General Electric, and his Q&A at the museum this past week. I saw it on C-SPAN, and he specifically said that the natural gas boom has really helped reshore American manufacturing. That's going to be a very tough divide to walk. Very briefly, though, there was some excitement, and there's been a movement to pressure Secretary of State-elect John Kerry to intervene and help block the Keystone pipeline that would bring oil from the tar sands of Canada through the United States, the Gulf of Mexico, bitterly opposed by environmentalists because they believe that this would just sort of open the floodgates to an even dirtier form of fossil fuels and would really make it almost impossible to get climate change under control. Where do you see the president coming down on this?
Well, I think that environmentalists were very encouraged when Kerry took the job as Secretary of State, and they think that they have some degree of trust that he will look at the tar sands and decide this is not in the national interest. This is a tough issue. It's really portrayed as a job creator and all of that. I think, and I've looked at the numbers, I think that the job creation potential of this pipeline is quite a bit less than supporters are advertising, but it is thousands of jobs, and that's not to be lightly dismissed. This really tests the president's commitment on climate change, and he, in his inaugural address, he put that issue front and center, and he said he is going to really engage on that issue in his second term. Now he has this pipeline decision to make, and everybody's looking at him. And the thing of it is, as you mentioned, the tar sands oil is a very, very carbon-rich oil. And if you build this pipeline, you're essentially committing our economy to 20 or 30 years of burning of this very high carbon oil, and so that will have a climate impact.
Absolutely. So there's no question. There's no question that this is sort of a long-term issue for those that care about climate change, and for those that do care and do want to see this stop, there's been no shortage of commitment on the willingness of environmental activists like Bill McKibben. So we're going to be staying tuned for those opportunities to take action. But coming up next on Take Action News, we're going to be talking about the media and the openness of our media and our media infrastructure with Tim Carr from Free Press after this.